Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I hope everyone is doing okay. We'll be starting in a few minutes. We're just waiting for a few more people, and then we will start. Please share this far and wide with your colleagues and friends who you know this might be helpful to, so that they can join as well. And we'll be starting at exactly 5 minutes past 11 o'clock. Okay, good morning once again. A huge welcome to all of you, our dear participants. Thank you for joining us on today's session of the Future of Work Career Essentials series, organized by Bakash Media Foundation in partnership with the Innovation Village. We've been running this series for about 3 months now, and we're actually coming to a close of the series soon by the first week of August. So we would like to thank you all for being part of that journey, and we really hope that you have found this valuable. As young professionals who are streamlining your presence or your foundation in the career and professional space, we hope that this is something that has been of great value to you, and we hope that there's a milestone that you've added unto yourself because of the knowledge that you get from here. So today we're having yet another session, of course, and I am privileged to be hosting and moderating the session. My name is Natasha Katondachi. I am a career and employability officer at Cavendish University. I'm also a public speaker, I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm glad to be working alongside with the team at Bakash Media Foundation to bring this to you. Today we shall be looking at professional communication in remote and hybrid environments, knowing very well that after COVID-19, the work culture kind of shifted, and we were introduced to remote work and hybrid work arrangements, which have continued over time, and now we are accustomed to them, and majority of people actually still majority of employees and employers also still employ that administration of work. So would like to look at what does it actually mean to maintain professional communication, even when you're working away from office or when you have a hybrid arrangement. And of course, we have our facilitators already on the call, who have vast experience and are going to share with us their nuggets on the topic today. We have Mr. Alan Sempewa, who is a communications officer at Uganda National Roads Authority. And we also do have Elijah Tuyagumanawe, who is the strategic communications officer at STI4. And they will be taking us through the topic today. So without taking any more time, I would like to invite Mr. Elijah Tuyagumanawe to take us through the presentation. Over to you, Elijah.
Well, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Well, I earlier had issues with my connectivity, but I'm glad I'm back. Very good morning to you all. If you can maximize, maybe, I don't know, showing half screen. If you can put it into presentation mode, yeah.
Yeah, just a moment.
Okay. Yeah, very good morning to you all. As we wait to get started, so we're on now. Okay. Thank you, Natasha. Thank you for the preamble. Thank you, everyone, for taking off time to participate on this space. And I pray and hope that it will be very productive for you and worth your time. I was in another capacity building meeting. Perhaps it explains that human capital and human capital development remains one of the key and very crucial parts of economic growth. I work for the Secretariat of Science, Technology and Innovation under the Office of the President. And our mandate is to foster the impact of science, technology and innovation for economic growth, or rather to drive economic growth using science, technology and innovation, or riding on the products that are stimulated through science, technology and innovation. And some of our key mandates on our wheel under our bureaus is productivity acceleration, which trickles down to key capital inputs, human capital and other production factors. Then we have export promotions and import substitution. Export promotions and import substitution are a byproduct of productivity acceleration. Productivity acceleration is mainly aimed at value addition. So at the Secretariat, I'm the Strategic Communications Officer, and I ride more on what communications can drive. If you just go back to the introduction before I go into the overview, because I'm still giving more of the preamble of what to do, who I am, and everything, and the what communication is and what it holds. Generally, we all know, or you will agree with me, those of you that have taken time to invest in knowledge accumulation by reading books, reading the literature that has been documented, but also following world trends, both history, present, and projections of the future. We know that communication can build a nation or break a nation, can build a community or break a community. If you move to the third slide, I'll briefly talk about that one. I'll tell you what communication is and how the word communication was derived. The word communication was rooted from the Latin verb communicare, which simply means to share or to make common. So communication is more of sharing with people, showing people And this sharing can be in various forms, cuts across. The official definition that I found more appropriate to share with you is the communication is a purposeful and actively exchanging information, purposefully and actively exchanging information between two or more people to convey or receive the intended meanings through the shared system of signs and symbols.
Elijah, are you still there?
Social dynamics, including family systems, which is the starting point of any society or community. So to take you back a little bit, the word communication is also derived from community. So it's community, then information being combined together. So it cuts across in the different spheres of our lives. How you can communicate with your family, with your spouse, your children. But in the professional setting, you're communicating with your boss, you're communicating with your subordinates, you're communicating with people at the same level as you, your colleagues, the same level, you're communicating with clients, you're communicating with both internal and external. Communication is categorized professionally into two, mainly internal and external. And mainly my strategy, because being the strategic communications officer, I draw a line because I leave no gray area between internal and external. Still on the background of communication, move to the next slide. I'll give you, those of you that went through, I've been lucky to study communication at different levels. And I have studied business communication. No, the previous one. I did business communication, but previously I'd majored in journalism and mass communication. So I'll take you through the process of communication for your own benefit. Those of you that didn't, because we still have courses that do not prioritize communication. However much you know it is pivotal in organization and institutional settings, it is at the center of coordination. So every organization that will continuously ignore the role of communication is doomed for disaster because the trends have dictated otherwise. That human nature is one complicated study, and human psychology is a study that is continuously being monitored and takes different turns and twists, considering that we come from different backgrounds. Some of the HR management systems incorporating communication skills and capacities, which enables the understanding of another party. Because we come from different backgrounds, we come at a professional institutional setting where we have to live, survive, make a living, and we are forced, or rather given their obligation naturally, because we have to survive, to live with different characters from different backgrounds. These different characters have different personalities and different characters. If you do HRs, human resource managers, continuously carry out personality assessments, and you realize mainly they've categorized them into 4 personalities and other the different tools that are being used out there. But we know for sure that people come from different backgrounds and therefore they have different personalities. So this particular graphical design that I came up with actually yesterday entails really the communication process, and it has the 8 elements of communication. If you went through a communication class or went to a journalism class, you perhaps come across something similar. This, I developed it myself for simplicity. And the main one is all these lines, all the arrows, if you monitor the arrows and the movement, it's a little bit different from the usual ones because the usual ones are continuous lines that are entangled. This one is a little bit simple, but it shows you that from the sender, which is the first component, I'll list the components real quick. The first component is sender, encoding, decoding, receiver. That's the main channel. Then we have the channel, which is where the message goes through. Then we have the message, we have feedback, and we have noise. Those are the 8. I didn't count, but I think there are 8. And I've completed them. There are 8 elements of the process, of the communication process. So the message comes from the sender. Just stick back to that because I'm still on that same slide. The message comes from the sender. Then it is encoded. The sender is the person intending to send. Sorry if there's any disruption. Are we still on? So yes, the message comes from the sender who intends to communicate. It is encoded. The encoding is the packaging of the message. It can be signs and symbols, it can be numbers, it can be the alphabet, it can be encrypted messages. So in other words, encoding is encrypting. If I may borrow the cybersecurity language, encoding is encrypting, packaging the message. You can, if it's a letter for the traditional communication means, you're writing a letter, you put it in the envelope, you conceal it, and therefore you put it on the channel for it to go to the intended receiver. So decoding is the next one. Decoding is decrypting in the cybersecurity language. Decrypting is when you reveal or unleash the message that has been sent to you from the sender and has been decoded. So you decode it or you decrypt it. In other words, you translate it into readable forms. You can interpret it. Then to the receiver. The main channels that the channel is the platform that you're using to send. For the traditional, they would use doves, they would use birds, they'd use other means, maybe put it in post office, something like that, which is traditional. But now we use, because of the disruption, the digital disruptions, communication has changed drastically. That you just send a WhatsApp message, you just send for the people, for instance, there are algorithms that are being used, the decrypted messages that can be encrypted at different levels. There are words, verbal words and non-verbal. But I'll also talk a little bit further on the different kinds of communication in terms of verbal versus non-verbal. But this is how it looks like. This is the process of communication entailing all the elements. The arrows that you're seeing down at the bottom are what we call noise. Have gone through journalism classes, you know that there are barriers to communication, or communication classes. There are barriers to communication, and one of the key and very consistent barrier to communication is what we term as noise. The barrier can be literally anything. It can be the channel, depending on the channel that you choose to send the message. It can be on the encoding part, because these disruption or barriers to communication are constant at every level of communication. It can also be at the communicator, who is the sender. There could be barriers at that level, but also there can also be barriers at the receiver end, which we call noise. There can be barriers at the receiver end. The barrier could be unable to effectively decrypt the message that has been received. In other words, you can receive a message that you cannot interpret. It becomes useless. You're not communicating. So the key barriers to communications are noise and noise entails all these other disruptions that go under there. So I move to the next slide so that we can. I only made a synopsis of really quick, because I don't want to bore you in my slides. I didn't want to. I made it really, really brief and short and precise so that we can talk about the key elements. Considering that we only have 1 hour. So verbal versus non-verbal communication. You will all agree with me that for clarity or effective communication, and in the official setting, verbal communication can, let me first a little bit try to demystify what verbal communication is. Verbal communication is the use of words. Words can be spoken or written, but it's more clear than non-verbal communication. Non-verbal communication is the use of gestures, signs and symbols, facial expressions, among others. So it literally does not entail the use of the use of words like verbal communication does. Although different communications experts have said that non-verbal communication usually turns out to be more powerful than verbal communication. that's why in most cases, however much we've had different digital disruptions in the remote setting of communication or remote settings of professional institutions, we still emphasize that nonverbal communication takes key stage or center stage in the endeavors to communicate. And that's why, in most cases, people would prefer to, when they want to communicate with you, to look you in the eye and pass on the message one-on-one. We all remember the frustrations that people had and we all did experience during COVID-19 lockdowns globally. People where you use gestures,
Hi, Elijah. Your network seems to be breaking.
verbal. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
There's a person who is constantly trying to call me. I think I'll have to block the contact for now for our to complete this because it's not relenting. I'm very clear now. Were you able to hear my previous submissions on verbal versus non-verbal?
Yes, we did.
Okay, yeah. So let's move to the next slide so I can put emphasis on the subject matter of this session and the intention of this session, which was on remote versus hybrid professional settings. So remote, to understand it a little bit further, the remote setting is where you can communicate without reaching out or from a distance, without necessarily moving to the people. Or in the remote setting, rather you can work, for instance, you can work from home. We saw what COVID-19 lockdown did, but also those trends have continuously expanded and people have gained trust in working from home, working from places of their convenience without necessarily having to regularly turn up at your offices. The hybrid is where you have a mixture. You can come to office on a regular, but you can also once in a while work from your place of convenience. And also the hybrid seems to be the most preferred style of work approaches. But also, if I take you back to the main slide, the communication process, if you can go back to that, and this, because I will keep referring to it. Because one of the key factors when you come to verbal communication or non-verbal communication, but the human interaction, but remote versus hybrid, to remove the barriers, majority of people would prefer to go for the hybrid setting, where you feel there are more barriers to communication. You want to move closer to the person. You want to eliminate the barriers by interfacing with this person one-on-one, so you can get the non-verbal and the verbal communication. In the professional setting, I'll go into the other a little bit traditional or non. Are we on?
We lost you for a bit.
Okay, so I was talking about personalities and how they communicate.
Yeah.
There are different personalities. Professionally, the tool that we're using at the Secretariat of Science, Technology and Innovation has categorized personality into 4. And these personalities, there is analytical, then there's the driver, there's the amiable, who is the agreeable personality, and there's the expressive. In this case, the expressive tend to communicate more than the other 3 personalities. So when you identify your personality, it becomes easier for you to communicate because you best understand yourself. But also it's very important for the communicator to understand their audiences. The best you understand your audience, the better for you it will be to communicate and also have your message received. There are quotes such as communication rules a nation. They're not made for granted. Communication can never be taken for granted. And you also know that most of the disasters that we've witnessed globally have been linked or have been caused or rooted from failed, efficient communication. When communication becomes inefficient or fails, then that's a key recipe to disaster. When there is lack of communication at every institutional level, that's what you're seeing conflicts here, you're seeing wars, you're seeing riots, you're seeing diseases, you're witnessing institutions that are worth thriving financially or spiritually or culturally or politically failing or economically failing because of failure to communicate. So when you understand these personalities at any level, institutional level in this case, because we're discussing professional communication, it will help you a great deal for you to communicate. When you understand that you're now communicating to an analytical person, these are some of the traits of an analytical person. An analytical person is cautious in their actions and decision-making. They like organizations and structures. They dislike involvement of others. They ask many questions because they're curious and they want to make sure that they take time to analyze, really. So for them, it's more of but the buy-in. They must get the buy-in. They don't make random decisions, or they don't act radically or spontaneously like other personalities. The driver personality takes action and acts decisively, likes control, dislikes. Inaction prefers maximum freedom to manage self and others, cool and independent, competitive, low tolerance to feelings and attitudes, and adverse of others, works quickly and efficiently by themselves. Then the amiable is mostly the agreeable, slow at taking action and making decisions. So these people are usually, they let others make decisions for them. They like close personal relationships. They dislike interpersonal conflict, support and actively listen to others, weak at goal setting and self-direction, demonstrates excellent ability to gain support from others, works slowly and cohesively with others, seeks security and inclusion. Then the expression, who is the best communicator in this case, in my opinion, they're spontaneous in actions and decisions, risk takers, and not limited by tradition, like involvement, generates new and innovative ideas, tends to dream and get others caught up in the dream, jumps from one activity to another. Because of their cheerful personality, they tend to not to focus. So it's good to have, and some people actually have a mixture of these traits, a mixture of these personalities. Then they works quickly and excitingly with others, not good with follow through. They have negatives and positives. If you realize all these personalities, all these personas have strengths and weaknesses, but you also find that there are those that dominate or stand out, but those that are suppressed. In the person, one can have 2 personalities, for instance, but there is one that dominates. So understanding these personalities helps one to communicate effectively and get the objective of the communication. Because every communication comes with an objective. Every communication has an underlying objective. Why are you communicating? Because when you're communicating, first of all, if you go back to the cycle, the process of communication, can you take us back to the process of communication? Yes. Even from the process of communication, yes, there. At that level, there should be a purpose for your communication. Why are you communicating? When you establish the reason as to why you're communicating, it can affect all the other levels. As a sender, then you can tailor an encoding style that is sufficient enough for your message, but also choose the channel appropriate to the message and to the purpose as to why you communicate, to make sure that your message will not be disrupted at any level, or there will be limited barriers. I think briefly, I will stop there to either allow question and answer sessions, or if the other panelist is also on board, they can give their intake so that I don't bore you with my an endless slides and so many words.
Thank you so much, Elijah. We appreciate your very deep insights on the communication process, getting to know your personality to identify why you're communicating and how the different contexts apply in the virtual and in the remote and in the hybrid or traditional work environments or arrangements. Thank you. We really appreciate your time and your insight. Dear participants, our other facilitator is already on the call, so I'd encourage that if you have any questions or additions that you'd like to add, kindly take note of them. And then once we're done with the second presentation, we can ask all the questions at once. We'll be using the mics and also the chat box, so please take note of your questions. We'll have a Q&A session. I'd like to take this opportunity to invite our other facilitator, Mr. Alan Sempewa, the Communications Officer at UNRWA. You are very welcome, sir. The floor is yours. Alan, are you there? We cannot hear you.
I think Alan is muted. I don't know.
He seems to be reconnecting to the audio. Alan, can you hear us? We can't hear you, so I don't know if it's an issue with your audio. Alan, we still can't hear you. Maybe you could drop and try rejoining. Okay. In the meantime, I guess as Alan fixes his audio, does anyone have any question regarding what Elijah has taken us through? If you have any question, we can use this time as we wait for Alan to get back, and he will let us know once he's here. Feel free to raise your hand and we'll send you a request to unmute, or you can use the chat. Alan, are you here now?
Yes, I think I'm audible now. I want to confirm.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Perfect.
Okay, that's perfect now. Sorry, I was trying to use my laptop and I think the audio over there was a bit distressing. So I've had to switch to my phone. And I'm glad that I'm now audible, right? You can confirm again?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much for this platform. I want to appreciate.
Alan, I think we've lost you again. We can't hear you. Okay, looks like Alan has dropped. So maybe let's just give him a few minutes to join back. Anyone has any questions or additions regarding the presentation that we had from Elijah?
Yes, any questions or reactions? Natasha, there can be reactions, there can be supplements.
Yeah,
Feel
sure.
free to, feel free to participate. It's a free discussion. But also, Natasha, if you also have supplements or if you have key areas that you feel like you want emphasis on as we wait for our audience to engage, you can as well point them out.
Okay, maybe it would be nice to hint on the topic of okay, I see there's something on the chat. Sorry, before we go to that. Akankwasa Isabel is asking how he would like to know how to find one's communication personality so that they can fully utilize their personality. Then I believe they were saying how can they identify their personality in regard to communication and then fully utilize that. And
Okay.
Darius is asking, what are the emerging trends in remote work communication that we should be aware of? And what is the role of AI and automation in evolving in workplace communication?
Thank you. Well, I think I'll start with the last one. The last question was, what are the emerging trends in remote work communication that we should be aware of? And how do you see the role of AI and automation evolving in workplace communication? Okay. We are all very much aware that AI is a new trend. We just have to adopt and appreciate it. It's only going to get deeper. It's going to delve deeper into the work environment. It's going to affect not only the industrial operations, but also the various levels of institutional operations like communications as well. We know that we now have Zoom, for instance. Now, in the old days, would have to convene. The Bakash Foundation would have to pay an auditorium. You'd have to facilitate perhaps breakfast and microphone and sound systems and video systems to have us, the trainers, talk to people that are interested in a subject like this. But those trends have changed and now they're traditional because now we can do it like this remotely. We can do it from our places of convenience. So we can communicate from wherever the place is, and AI and technology has taken a toll on the traditional communication means. That's why now we have, for instance, we have mainstream media, then we have digital media. The mainstream, which is traditional media, is being phased out slowly. And you've seen several institutions take drastic decisions on some of these key aspects. AI has also showed that it can literally do majority of the works that humans were doing in the communications arena before. For instance, writing a script. Right now, AI can shoot a video and complete it. You can replicate yourself in a video talking when it's actually not you. We're seeing these things happening in real life. 10 years from now, a decade from now, people thought this was mere fiction. It was close to undoable, something that humans would never do. Right now, the video would come of a news anchor, of a public relations officer, of a CEO speaking. We've seen Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk talking. And you think it's them talking when it's actually not them. When it's actually AI speaking and it's not them. So the different dimensions that have taken, and therefore there is need to also tighten the belts in quite a few areas here and there to close the loopholes to cyber insecurity, because cyber insecurity is going to take yet another advantage or of some of the loopholes that are in the or the proud people to steal personalities, because now these are the areas right now that actually us as government or as a country need to prioritize in terms of policy institutions, statutory institutions that can safeguard people, can protect people on these communication platforms that are a new trend now in both professional, but also in the social settings of the human societies. The other question was on, I would like to ask Elijah how to find one's communications personality so as one can fully utilize their personality. Their personality.
Elijah?
Well, yes, please.
Elijah?
Yes.
I think Alan is on now. I think he can first take us through, then you can ask that again.
Yes. Can I just okay, Alan, okay. I'm going to just this question because it's brief, but also I had hinted on the 4 personalities. Just I'm finishing this. The 4 personalities I had hinted on, I also described them. But for further guidance, perhaps I'll ask Akankwasa Isabel, who asked the question, to reach out. I'll share maybe a slide or a snapshot of these personalities that have the traits of each personality for her to take good advantage of them. Because I read them through and I took everyone through. There's the analytical, the driver, the amiable, and the expressive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elijah. The participants, please, you can keep your questions coming on the chat, and then once we're done with the second presentation, we'll address all of them at a go. So feel free to keep taking note of your questions. Alan, are you able to speak now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
I was actually able to speak. I don't know, maybe the internet simply dislodged me, but I kept hearing you guys, but I think you couldn't on my side. But again, I wanted to appreciate you, the host, and the entire fraternity at Bakash for, like I was saying, for providing this platform where we can, routinely share experiences, lessons, skills. And I said that I think this is the way to go because we have the platforms, we can only utilize them, or if we don't, then we perish because we have a lot now at our disposal than ever before. And one of the highlights of this segment of interaction is on high communication, and we're looking at how these platforms have in a way enabled closer interaction, engagement, build trust among institutions, among societies. So it looks like this is upon us and we can only embrace it or we perish. I want also to appreciate Elijah. Elijah is a colleague of mine for taking us through the communication processes. I'm lucky I would now not delve into that, and also taking us through a bit of the barriers in hybrid communication. So I'll bring in the practical. I believe it's insightful. When Bakash shared with me the key discussion points, I looked at them and they're very academic. So I said, no, I think it will be insightful if practical. And I come in from a knowledge sharing point of view. If you can accept host, then I can actually take it up from there. And this is how I summarize the discussion. For me, it's about communicating in a hybrid environment. Taking up from what Elijah has shared with us, I would want to probably take us back to the genesis of all this. It's not that, like, we didn't have hybrid work before. We had it, but it wasn't as pronounced as it is lately. And where we are now even talking about it with this much attention and concentration and, providing insights, because we had a crisis, if you remember very well, the COVID-19. And while it was important for us to social distance to avoid the pandemic that actually that we suffered from 2019 towards the end of 2019 and the after years, it also created a gap, between us. And this ultimately affected the way we communicated with each other, the way we interacted, especially at work. So we all agree that there was then a move to work differently. And this is how hybrid communication gets more pronounced in Uganda, or even in general Africa by extension. Sorry, somebody needs to be muted. Hello.
We are about to listen to Kaitesi Anna's secrets.
That is hybrid communication for you.
Sorry about that. She's muted now. You can proceed.
Oh, okay, thank you. And now those are the dangers of hybrid communication or working in a hybrid environment. If you don't take charge of the tools, the tools will betray you. Sorry about that anyway. So yeah, I was trying to say that hybrid communication then became a force, to ride with. It became inexcusable for anyone not to attend a meeting online, than it was before. Before you would, I doubt any of you would call for an online meeting here and anybody would actually participate. It happened that time. I think I was still doing my MA at the university, and the lecturers had to switch from the known or routine physical classes to online, and we had struggles. You had professors and experienced tutors grapple with network to try and pass on knowledge to us, but it became inexcusable, like I said, especially for higher institutions of learning. I mean, imagine Makerere University, and we didn't have this hybrid kind of exercise. So it became really difficult for one to not to work with this kind of not to work in this hybrid environment that now befell us because of the pandemic. I really want to attribute this to the pandemic because we are now moving faster than we were before, and yet it also carries its advantages. And I want to say that we did miss out on so much because now decision making can be quicker, interaction is quicker. The workshops, now, no wonder they actually cut budgets for workshops. Before when this was actually passed as a policy to cut expenditures on workshops, we didn't appreciate until now. Now we know that we can actually meet online, dispersed wherever we are geographically, and still have a meeting, still catch up on different decisions, and make decisions that actually move our institutions and societies ahead. So we will then agree that the work environment has now highly evolved because of this hybrid environment. And like somebody said, change is a fact of life. And if you fail to accept change, I mean, you either accept or perish. So the choice is actually yours. Now, Africa is on a trajectory to become increasingly competitive, by adopting to the evolving environment, or we perish. So we either adopt or we actually perish. I was looking at a statistic in South Africa where they were saying that about 63% say that their productivity has increased. 63%, that's a big margin, if you agree with me, has increased out of working remotely or under a hybrid mechanism. And 46% say they are now happier with their jobs compared to the situation before COVID-19. What has made this definitely achievable is the use of technology and all its advantages and disadvantages, unfortunately or fortunately. We can only pull off this work environment by use of these technological tools. They keep having updates here and there. We've talked about AI. We can't actually dwell with AI now. There's so much you can do with AI, content creation, writing messages, you can even write your emails. We only have to have an eye. We don't allow technology or these trends to actually control you, but to have control over them. So in a way, we should be masters to these technological tools and the components of technology, or else they will take master of us, and we'll fail to have control, and we'll have mistakes in our content. It appears quite snobbish when you see people using AI. I'm not saying we shouldn't use it to the fullest, but we should have control, because AI will give you lots of flowery figures, statistics, and at the same time, if you actually try to double check, or if you didn't double check, you will be passing out errors to your audience. So it's also important to double check the information or the research and data that we gather from these AI tools as well. I also wanted to share with you a personal experience here at UNRWA, where I work, where I've been actually working for the last 9 years now. UNRWA is a geographically dispersed, entity. We have about 23 stations. We have over 1,000 staff, and the hybrid work has provided an environment for us to communicate, engage. I talked about quickness in decision making. So this has been enabled because of this. We have projects where we have development partners involved. For example, the forthcoming Kampala-Jinja Expressway. I want to tell you that during the pandemic, or when we switched on to a hybrid work environment, we're able now to interact with, our partners at the bank, IFC, the World Bank, from wherever they were remotely, in their comforts. It could be coffee shops, could be cafes, could be homes. We actually do not know, but we're able to interact, and we would have minutes. These minutes will be signed off, and there were decisions made. So the work did not stop. So what does it tell you? That we cannot afford to, fall back and say we can't do so much because we didn't meet physically. We can't decide because we couldn't meet. There are all these platforms, Google Meets, right now we're on Zoom, Teams by Microsoft. So we have a lot at our disposal to utilize and move with work and be part of the blossoming economies that already are adopted and are utilizing this hybrid nature of working. Again, to share about experience, one item I found very necessary in a hybrid environment is two of them. One is change management, and the other is business continuity management. Change management is actually trying to get people on board. It may actually sound easy that you'd want somebody to simply log in and you interact wherever they are, dispersed as they may be geographically. But people do not register it as easily as possible if it is not, taught. If there are no attempts to learn, to share experiences, how can this work? How can it be utilized? How much of it can you actually do? You will find people meeting because it's an online meeting. People think everybody actually has the data to go on for 2 hours or 3 hours. Or people think people will have the time to be in a meeting for more than an hour simply because you're meeting remotely. Therefore, we should actually be there and, focused and, So I think there also has to be a bit of protocols for us to be able to utilize and efficiently work in a hybrid environment. So change management is important to let people know that this is actually how we can utilize this hybrid work environment, because I agree with you, it provides flexibility and allows you an adequate working environment, can keep anybody in touch regardless of their geographical location. People are able to also have achieve a healthy work-life balance. There is also real-time exchange of information once you're connected, and it allows for continuous, interaction and exchange of information. So, but that should definitely be structured. There should be a structure for us to achieve this flexibility, this interaction, work-life balance. We don't get online and think we would be actually there because we have the platform. So therefore, we should meet until the cows come back from grazing. So change management is important for people to appreciate and understand this concept. And I think this is what organizations are going to be doing. We've been undertaking a research internally to try and see how people are adopting to hybrid interaction or working, to see if it's efficient, to see how we can actually balance it with the physical interaction. Away from work. Some people choose to say, oh, I can actually work from home 3 days, and then the other 2 days, I'll be at office. Or I'll be 2 days away home and 3 days I'll be at office. So that interaction needs to be, that discussion needs to be on the table. Then the business continuity management plan is also very important. This is the document we at UNRWA that we established in 2020 to try and counter the adverse effects that COVID-19 imposed on us, where we had to close business, yet still we couldn't close because business continuity calls for continuous, for continuous work amidst a disaster. So UNRWA activated the business continuity plan. And what it does, it establishes protocols and supports business recovery, in cases of attack, crisis, disruption. So it ensures that an institution or company is able to resume functionality in cases of a disruption. So it's a living document. It's a living document, and communication in there is also a strong pillar in a business continuity plan. So it in a way sets parameters on how you will work, how business shall continue to flow, even in a disrupted environment. So I in a way, I want to match business continuity management with hybrid working environment, because under that is where we're able to now say, identify critical, mission critical departments in the institution, and we had to communicate it to our clients, both internal and external. And what this gave us was able to show that we are transparent as an institution, we're willing to continue working, sharing information. And how were we doing it? This is where we activated the tools. We went so much on the spaces, the Twitter spaces. We went on the Zoom. We say that our interactions are going to be more digital than they were before. We were calling for feedback across our road network using our digital platforms. We had to open up our website to allow people deposit documents and letters. Previously you bring a physical document or letter to the institution. We opened up a portal where somebody would deposit their letter and it is received, and would work on it. So that in a way shows the level of preparedness, and it demonstrates those values: transparency, preparedness, and in a way trust. If we're able to buy, we're able to trust you now. So I'm just trying to say that for the listeners in here, if you don't have that business continuity strategy or plan, it is the time now that you actually got it. And it's a living document. You keep improving it, but it establishes protocols and mechanisms for continuing with work amid this disruption. And one of the things that actually were very supportive, I want to say, get a discussion point, was hybrid communication, or working in a hybrid work environment. So it was brought to the fore than ever before. And of course, our HR was at the center, trying to check out staff, how are they utilizing it, are they able to work? Because as you know, it lacks the face-to-face interaction. And if you're not very careful, some very emotional people, I don't want to say I'm not emotional, but some emotional people catch feelings of isolation, loneliness, they would feel disengaged. So we had a monitor, a class monitor, you want to call him or her, and that was our HR department, checking on people on a daily basis. How are they coping up? How are they doing? So even after the COVID-19 pandemic, we've continued to work from home some days. So it has definitely changed the face of work. I think I've tackled the what it is, the advantages, the disadvantages as well. But again, I must insist that this is a form of innovation that we either adopt or perish. I mean, the choice is ours. But economies that are advancing have embraced it already, and we can only embrace it as well. I want to thank you very much, and I think that's my little contribution to this subject, and I would welcome any insights and questions.
All right, thank you so much, Alan, for that. I guess we'll get right into the questions.
Yes, I also wanted to insist again that mine was important, that I provide insightful, if not practical, experiences from my work experiences. From where I work, where I sit at UNRWA here, how we've been able to embrace it, how we utilized it during the COVID environment and even post-pandemic. So I really wish to share those personal experiences.
And they're definitely valuable. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Ivan Nagawa Revandera is asking, his question goes to Alan, mainly about PR practice in the fast-paced world of social media. How can PR practitioners maintain the balance between professionalism and swift response towards concerns from netizens?
Okay. I think I've summarized it well. Maintaining professionalism in a crisis. I like such questions because they get me back now in the trenches, because this is where I've been for some time. Indeed, you will be faced with a number of crises. I don't know how many I've actually interfaced or been able to deal with and work with if I started mentioning them. Right from 2015, there have been so many. I mean, dealing with contractors who are not performing, who take their time on our projects, dealing with damages on our road network. You may have heard of the Chengeda, I call them crises, the Chengeda crisis, the Karuma crisis, the Katonga crisis, the Masaka crisis, Seziwa crisis. There have been definitely so many of them. But for me, one most important attribute that I think would want everybody to have, and I tell my colleagues in government, is to listen. Don't hear, because everybody has an ear after all, but make effort to listen to the netizens, as you've called them, because they are part of us, they are part of our ecosystem, and we are there to provide a service to them. And as a PR practitioner, back to the question, the PR practitioner, mine is to offer that listening ear. Not to just hear, like I said, because everybody, in fact, my ear is big. I have bigger ears if you've seen me in person. But I must use them to listen. Take a moment and listen and appreciate the concern. Because I know by the time somebody has shared it, they're going through an experience, they're going through a situation, a circumstance, a crisis, and they will want somebody to listen. They want a solution from the service provider, who is actually government. Because government is a service provider for the public goods. And the roads, for example, the road sector, for example, is a public good. So mine is to listen, to be in their shoes, to appreciate that the concern is actually valid, even before I dismiss it. I would want to know, can I have more information? Now I'm going to the professionalism. Somebody may give you something that is not valid. You may have seen how police is battling with the allegations of homosexuality on the arrested youth. But yours is to listen. Give that ear, as big as it could be as mine, but use it to listen, to appreciate before you even make a response. Find the facts. Make effort to investigate, to probe, and have the details. Because somebody could simply throw a sweeping statement. We like speaking without facts, or speaking what we may have heard, or from the corridors, or from hearsay. It's very easy, and I'm always watchful, trying to see statements of hearsay or sweeping statements online. I see them. Somebody say, but you do bad roads. I mean, somebody has said a statement like that. So I want to ask, give me an example of which road, for example. I want to address myself to that road. I want you to appreciate, to understand what went into that road, or what is the trouble, or what is the situation with that road, and make you understand without even going into an argument, without dismissing you. So let's not be dismissive. Let's be listening. We'll be able to respond and counter to the netizens, because all they need is an ear, a listening ear, and a responsive one as well. So when you listen, what else? Action, good. That you have actually identified or probed or established as a problem, get a solution. That's what I do on a daily basis here as a PR practitioner at UNRWA. Thank you.
Okay, Amon Matsko, your hand is up. Please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Good afternoon. I hope you can hear me clear and well. My name is Amon, and my question is kind of related to what Alan is from answering, and Mine, it's just I want a clarification from both of you, the practitioners in communication, the PRs. Is it a tactic that you learn in your school or in your work that sometimes for the organizations such as the ones you work for, choose to keep quiet in light of crises, say online protests, that's just an example, or online criticism? Some organizations we've seen have chosen to keep quiet. Is it a tactic in communication or because they just don't have answers? And is it right, or I don't know? I want to hear from a professional view. Yeah.
Masco, who is responding to that? I think that question is directed to Alan.
Elijah, you you as well speak for a government organization, so I think you could as well answer me. I don't know.
Tell him.
Well, I, as a communications specialist, I also took time to study a bit of subjects on human psychology and the behavior of human, and but also we know that sometimes speaking could do more harm than good. And in most cases, as a communicator, some communications experts have or commentators have concluded that silence then just means it's true, and in most cases it's not. Like you did denote, I would call it a communications tactic. It depends. Some could be allegations, or it could also be a project. For instance, as a science communicator, I communicate for science, technology, and innovation. Science is a bit, I wouldn't say complicated, but it's a subject that cannot be easily comprehended by everyone that does not understand the subject. For instance, there could be projects that are underway at a certain level. So my strategy as a science communicator under science, technology, and innovation is to categorize certain projects that have reached a level of communication and that those that have not reached that level to be communicated. The public domain can bring out a subject. For instance, I'll give you one of the most controversial ones, which was the lab rats. This investment, you might look at it go. So you talking about it now do more harm than good to the project. So then tactically, but also make sure that your heart or your voice has been heard or your concern is being heard and therefore it has been addressed. I might not go public with you, but
Hello, is Elijah still on?
I think I went off. At what level did I go off? Hello?
I said you may not go public, and yeah.
Yes. I was trying to say, I was giving you a scenario of you having this grievance. I might not go public with you, but perhaps instigate a dialogue to help you understand, to have a middle ground so that you understand what we're doing, at what level we are, and the intentions. Because in most cases, you look at the money that has been invested, perhaps in PB, the banana project, maybe in pathogen economy, on the vaccine development, on the drug development, and just looking at billions of money, and you're wondering, what is this money going to do really? And maybe you're questioning the investment. But there is an end goal, and therefore, and government has an agenda. And our agenda, the Secretariat of Science, Technology, and Innovation, looking at the vision 2040, is the tenfold
implication on our GDP. And this tenfold implication is, right now our GDP is around, GDP per capita is around 1,100 US dollars per head, because it's per capita. But our goal or our mandate is to have a tenfold, to work at 7 times more, so that we can, by 2040, we have a GDP per capita of 7,000 plus, 7,000 US dollars plus per capita. And this is not a goal that is easy to achieve, and if you're not willing to compromise on certain aspects that for the benefit, for the long-term benefit, and we would want all Ugandans to own the goal. The only way we can help all Ugandans to own the goal is to communicate effectively, and one part of the strategy is dialogues, to help people understand, to educate people partly on science aspects, because science projects are not projects that you communicate anyhow, based on the level of that project. We remember the backlash we received on, or the crisis we received on the satellites. People would wonder, hey, the satellite, but we also know that we're not the first country that put the satellite in space. Satellite was in, different countries have put satellites in space, and they've been omitted. But this has never been the crisis in all the projects. Each satellite has a lifespan, and the lifespan was 1 year, and it was omitted. And it's normal. But for people to understand space technology, it might take an external intervention of educating people and helping people appreciate the different measures government is taking for them to understand and own the goal that Uganda has under science, technology, and innovation. I think that sounds right.
Thank you, Elijah.
Yes, thank you. I would like to hear from him as well, because from our communication process cycle, the communication cycle dictates that communication is not complete until you have feedback. So I would like to get feedback from him directly, if he is satisfied by my answer.
Thank you. I'm partly satisfied with your answer, but okay, in my own opinion, your science may be complicated, but I believe you could simplify it and try to explain to the masses. Yeah, because at some point you instigated a dialogue. I don't know if you suggested a dialogue with the person who's asking a question, but remember, this person or an online, I don't know, critique is representing many people who may have the same question. So if you're saying a dialogue with them, then you're not answering the masses that may have the same question as such a person. So I don't know, maybe you keep quiet completely, or you come up and speak.
Like, Masiko, like I did state, it depends the level of the project. Then the other thing is, because you do not know the agenda of everyone out there, so there's information that you do not communicate on a scientific project, lest it is doomed to disaster or to fail. Do you understand that part? So when it reaches a level of being communicated, you can communicate it. Perhaps now that the project is already out, the satellite was already launched, there is always clarification. The investments have been made under the pathogen economy for drug and vaccine manufacturing. That is ready for communication. But an infant project cannot be communicated early. But also the other thing is the tone and how someone is asking. Some people ask direct questions in a civic way, but other people will attack you directly in a vulgar manner. So it becomes a bit rather complicated to go around the responses professionally based on the decision that you would make and the approach the concerned party is taking.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. This conversation is quite interesting, actually, but unfortunately, we have to bring it to a close.
Don't bring it to a close yet, host.
You have something
think,
to add, Alan?
Yes. Elijah there made insightful contributions. Really, I must applaud him, because he was only trying to tell us that you that you must know when to talk and when not to. So, in summary, keeping quiet can be a tactic. Amon can be a tactic, and be a peer. Because Amon asked if we go to, there's a certain institution of learning where we're taught to keep quiet. So yes, it can be a PR strategy itself, because silence, like he did say, is golden, and in a crisis situation, you will actually appreciate that is a golden solution. But again, you can't be silent all through. You know, silence is only right in right circumstances. So you apply it case by case. There is, like, yeah, actually Elijah is actually rightly saying, there are areas where you will actually choose to know when to speak or when to talk about something. If it's something is actually not ready, then you must find a way of doing it right for your institution. I mean, speaking in a way that does not probably antagonize findings or investigations. I mean, just so you minimize the impact. So it's important actually that you can actually think you're going to talk and talk and talk, but actually brew another crisis. So we are on, it's a 24/7 job, by the way, public relations, trying to find the right words to use, the right timing, when to say something, when not to say it. I mean, so you have to be balanced. For example, we had a situation lately on when the planned demos. I think that was Tuesday, and everybody was talking about the riots, you know. So now, while everybody was there, we also had to be careful what we say at that point, because you can brew another crisis for your institution or for your company if you're actually not careful, not knowing when is the right time actually to talk about something. Also choosing what is right to speak at that point and what is not. So silence is only right under the right circumstances, I can say. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Alan. Okay, so I'm going to ask you on behalf of both of you facilitators to give closing remarks for this session. And while you do that, I'll just pop up a very quick poll for our participants. We usually request you to take a few seconds of your time to fill this in so that we can get feedback on how the sessions have been, and also to help us in the future continue to curate sessions that are relevant to your needs as young professionals. So if you look so if you look at your screen right now, you will see there's a poll that has popped up. Kindly take a few seconds of your time to fill it in. We've also shared a link on the chat for our WhatsApp community. So go ahead, if you're not part of it, please join, and we can also continue the conversation over there. Next week, our session will be physical, and it will be hosted at Cavendish University, Uganda. So that will be on 2nd of August, Friday. And we will be looking at personal branding and professional image in the digital age. So please be sure to mark your calendar and come through for that. It will be quite interesting. Yeah, so while Alan gives the closing remarks, I'll request those who can to please turn their videos on. We'll be taking a virtual photo in a moment. Over to you, Alan. Please give your closing remarks.
Thank you very much, host. I want to appreciate Bakash Media Foundation for the opportunity of learning, sharing, interaction. Keeps us going, it keeps us innovating, it keeps us in close interaction, keeps us growing our country, Uganda. Uganda is a beautiful country. We don't have any other country but Uganda. I would call on everybody to join hands to see a better Uganda by, taking on such innovations so that we can build our country, so we can market our country. These technologies and tools exist so that we can appreciate our country even better. So we utilize them not to damage our country, but to grow and market our country. So for me, that's the message I have tonight for everyone following here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alan, for those words. Thank you, Elijah, as well. You have shared very, very great insight from both your experiences and also the knowledge you know about communication, PR, what it means, how to communicate, what and when not to speak, and all that. I believe we have learned a lot, and it has also triggered a very insightful and interesting conversation, which would be great to continue. So I'd encourage everyone to come through for our physical session next week on Friday at Cavendish University, Uganda, while we continue to build meaningful relationships, networks, but also learn from each other. Thank you so much, our facilitators. We really do appreciate your time and for sharing your knowledge with us. We'll now take a very quick virtual photo. So, a few more cameras, maybe. We still have only a few faces. Okay. On the count of 1, 2, 3. Got it. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today, everyone. Enjoy your weekend and see you next week on Friday. Cheers.